Have you ever felt like student loan debt was an unsolvable problem? I know it can seem that way, but today's video is all about why I think it's a solvable problem. But to get it started, I think we need to talk about what the actual problem is in the first place. So there are a couple. The first is the extent of this is big. There are over 44 million Americans who owe over $1.4 trillion in student loans. It's second only to mortgages in terms of consumer debt. So it's no small number. The other problem is that 10% of those borrowers are currently in default because they can't afford to repay that debt. One of the reasons for this is that the cost of student loans and the cost of college is starting to approach its value. So costs at a public four-year institution have nearly tripled since 1980, and that's in inflation-adjusted dollars, so that's real dollars. In order to pay for that, borrowers would have to work 51 hours a week at today's minimum wage compared to 22 hours a week and at 1980's minimum wage. So we're expecting borrowers to work above full-time plus attend full-time classes. That's just not realistic. So it's not that college has a cost that's problematic, it's just that that cost is approaching its value. Not all college degrees are created equally. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I do want to say that I think most college is worth it. I just think it requires careful selection. So the median annual wage of someone with a high school diploma in the United States is $35,000. If you compare that to somebody who has a bachelor's degree, that median annual goes up over $60,000. So there is financial benefit to college degrees. Not to mention that they also have intrinsic value that's a little bit intangible. Things like enhanced critical thinking skills and, college experiences and being able to see the world. That kind of stuff that's intrinsic to college definitely has value. But it's not as measurable as income. The other thing is not all college is created equally. So while some degrees may benefit you financially, there are some whose costs would exceed their value. So it's important not to just give the blanket advice that college earns you more money. Sorry about that. My dog is out here and he wants me to play fetch. Anyway, so the way that I think we solve this problem is by you can either decrease the costs or increase the value of the education. So one of the ways to decrease costs is to provide some pricing transparency in terms of outcomes and to tie funding to that. So the way that that would look is we would look at things like the average job placement rate for a specific program, the average debt somebody graduated with, and their average starting salary. And essentially, in degrees that didn't have a profitable course, we would either potentially their funding could be cut, either cut out entirely, or it could be reduced until they improved outcomes, and then it could be restored to full value. Now, one of the problems with this is that, as you could guess, there could be certain degrees that have a valuable role in society, but they just don't pay the same. And so it could be tough because we could end up eliminating degree programs that really do have use. So this would have to be, we would have to think about this carefully. So the other side of the equation, which I think is easier to deal with, is increasing the value. So one of the ways we could do this is by ensuring colleges are truly only providing programs that the workforce needs. So we don't want to train people for jobs that existed 10 years ago. We want to prepare people for jobs that exist now and are going to exist in the future. We want to make sure we have programs that respond to labor force needs. The reason that's important is because if you're meeting the need in the market, you can command a high price. So that means you get a good wage for what you're doing. So again, that would increase the value of education. One of the other groups that I think can be helpful in this is the private sector. So employers, I think every employer should be offering student loan repayment matching as a benefit. So just like a retirement account matching and that kind of investing benefit, I think employers who require their employees to have college education should offer this as a benefit as well. And in order to do that effectively, I think it would work a lot better if the government passed some policy that made this tax deductible. That would help that benefit go quite a bit further. I also think the government has some ability and a role in this as well. So one of the things that I think could be really effective is providing low interest rate loans, low fixed interest rate loans, specifically just for the cost of tuition and fees. That would prevent borrowers from getting a loan at 2% to do something else. But keeping that fixed interest rate really low would help make sure that interest isn't responsible for anybody's inability to pay their student loan debt back. And I do realize that with the rate of default, this probably could cost the government some money, but I think it's the right thing to do, and I think it would help borrowers out quite a bit. And again, if we limited it to tuition and fees, I think it would be a relatively affordable thing to do. Now, the final group, and I think the most important group, is borrowers. I think, helping borrowers decide what to do and how to make smart decisions with repaying their debt is probably the first place we need to start. That's the reason I have this Repayable YouTube channel. That's the reason I have the blog. That's the reason I do all of this, is because I think those of us with debt, myself included, need to be aware of our best options so that we can most effectively pay back our loans. Now, one of the things that I think makes this tough is information that's available is so tough to navigate, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's not a super simple system, but I think it is navigatable, and the more people like this, the more people that get out there and spread the message like that says, hey, you can do something about your debt, don't be afraid of it, take a look at it, the more borrowers are going to feel empowered to actually take a look at their debt, because that's the first part to figuring out what the best decision is for them. So I think those are kind of the big points. I think having borrowers know what to do with their debt, having a government support the affordability of college through policy making, having employers support their employees by offering a student loan repayment match, and then having and then having colleges come in with some transparent data that's tied to outcomes. So they produce programs, and the graduates that go through them that can command a good price in the marketplace. So what do you guys think? Do you think student loan debt is a solvable problem? Have you tried any of these? Have you ever worked for anybody who offers any of these benefits? Have you talked to your representatives about different policies that could help borrowers? I would love to know all about it. So leave me a comment below, and I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of more free-form video. It's a beautiful day outside, despite the fact that we got 8 inches of snow last week. It's now like 60s, and I get to wear a t-shirt, and it feels great. So I just wanted to take that chance to film outside. I do hope you liked the video, and we will see you next Wednesday for another video. Bye!